don't wanna do it in this meeting, could you email me, like, what you think
sure,
about this
sure,
makes it worse
absolutely.
than Marcus's, because I was
Yeah.
really trying to.
Neutralize.
The only thing that you seemed to add was what she mentioned, the comment, the specific comment on, HB three,
Yeah.
738.
Yeah,
I changed some things like.
I feel most of your
Like
changes
in
were
these conflicts, I changed it
muting.
to issues, and instead of concluded, I said been made aware. Instead of is deleterious, I said poses a potential long-term threat to the rights of independent home educators.
I don't think that,
I think if you want to couch the whole thing and so we're supposed to be advising the commissioner. That's how the spirit of how these things have been written in the past. And so really the advising is, we've heard testimony representing this side of thing. We heard testimony representing this side of things. We had people calling out. I mean, this has been the most contentious board I've ever been on over the years in home education. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if you have to kind of work things out. And I appreciate all the positions, but we don't have all the people here representing different points of view. The two people that aren't here, and maybe the third, maybe didn't want to participate today because this has been so contentious and whatever. And again, I'm not speaking for them and I haven't spoken to them. But I don't want to have a conversation now about this without other people on this council representing other points of view.
So,
Yeah.
if some people strategically chose to deny us a quorum today because they don't like what we would end up adopting, it's because they recognize that a majority of the voting members who were active during the period we're reporting on would adopt something they don't like. So I
Well,
certainly,
I hear you.
you
Marcus.
know,
Yeah,
for example, and might as well announce it now, it's my intention to give up the gavel as soon as we get a report out for the year when I was chair.
Right.
Right? I would love to not be in this position any longer, but as long as we can't get a report out, I really can't do that, and I would not want to do that, say, at this meeting,
right.
where, like you say, people who are appointed for the following year aren't here, and so if we voted on a new chairman, it wouldn't reflect the new board for next year. But the people a majority of whom support this report today are the people who were on this council during the year that we're reporting on. So, the new commissioner may appoint several people, they may change the constituency of the council. But that's not, that does not give us a more accurate report of the war business that was done in the 2024-25 school year.
I
So-
totally hear what you're saying, and you're in a terrible position. We voted you in, this has been rough, right?
Right.
Having said that, my intention when we spoke about it last month, and I totally supported this, was we were actually gonna roll our sleeves up as a group with all the people here and do the work.
We also
it's my
all agreed
intention
that
as
the
well.
meeting date and time worked for us.
And
we
again,
went through the whole
If some
summer
people
to find
want
a single
who
date. that-
explicitly said
I
last month
understand that, but
that they
right,
could be here on this day
Right,
at this
right.
time,
I
then
hear what you're saying.
strategically decided to deny us a quorum as a way of backdoor winning a fight they knew they were losing. Then, then
That's
it is
the
not my
word. It's
failing,
not a
it's
fight.
not my failing as chairman, or it's not our
No.
failing as a board. To not have them represented or not be having that discussion you and I both wanted to have.
And here's my concern when we start using words like a fight. This should not be a fight. It should be a conversation and finding places that we could commonly agree on stuff.
There's a disagreement.
Yeah.
There's a disagreement. The alternative position is not that we report all of these concerns, all of these negative effects of the EFA program on independent homeschooling that came up during the meetings, that came up from public comment. The alternative position is that we don't mention EFAs at all. I have been told that the desire is to go to where I switch over from, these are the activities of the constituent organizations, ... and then discuss the EFA, to just delete everything below that line and pretend that we didn't discuss that at all this year.
And I'm not suggesting
And
that.
so that is the alternative position.
No, actually, there's one in the middle.
Well, I don't know any person on this council whose opinion is that we should reflect the public comments, but in a softer way than, say, what, Rebecca or I, or, perhaps some mild modification. I don't, the members who are missing today are missing because they believe we should eliminate all of the FA discussion entirely.
Marcus, at the June meeting, we all agreed that if we were unable to attend, that we would send to you, and you agreed as the chair that you would run line item by line item through the entire report to correctly reflect any concerns or changes that were
And nobody did that
proposed.
except Becky.
And also that those individuals agreed that by their absence from the meeting today, their voice would be heard, but their ability to have the final say would not be present. We
I'm
were
sorry, I
in
just
an
have to-
adult agreement
I'm
about
not-
how this meeting was going to happen today. And it's been that way for over a month.
I thought they
And it
were,
was that way for over a month before that. And yet
I
we're
hear your
still here with no
frustration.
report.
Yeah,
I thought they were going to show up today, and I thought that they would like this because my changes make it just very, like, it's about separating the pathways, safeguarding the rights of home educators, 193A home educators, and avoiding conflation. And I don't see why that would be a controversial position, even for an organization that
Claims to be
Represents
apolitical, but is
all.
acting quite
What
politically.
is controversial is that some legislators, probably the commissioner, some other people who have a partisan interest in supporting the EFA program, having nothing to do with homeschool.
Right.
But as a larger direction for education in New Hampshire, they support the EFA program.
the school
Want
choice stuff, yeah.
want us to be on board as homeschoolers. And they feel betrayed that we are providing any friction whatsoever to the implementation of, universal EFAs. And when we're not, all we're doing is we're pointing out, I obviously have no power, and very few people are on our side on this, as far as being against EFAs for homeschooling. However, these are problems people are having. These are predictable problems that this is going to cause for the homeschooling movement as a whole in the future. And, I think our exact role as a council is to be that voice. And, the legislature or NHED wants to adopt a rule or a policy or pass a law, and they want to say, what we do in this legislative and rulemaking process is done in consultation with the community of independent homeschoolers. This is how they do that. But then when we say something that's that runs against a particular political agenda, well, really our job should just be to come here and read our press releases at one another. We had a meeting and we have new members and NHED is running a program. Okay, great. That's what they want. That's what we should confine ourselves to, and we should have no policy opinion whatsoever. And that is a problem. It is a problem to have this council meeting and to be gagged on issues that affect the people who we are being taken to represent.
But the purpose of HEAC is to represent 193A home educators.
Right, to represent them, and sometimes that means
And that-
to,
and that
to
doesn't-
voice concerns that are politically inconvenient.
But it doesn't mean that somebody can't be on this council for the purpose of protecting those rights. And
No one's saying
also,
that,
and also think that
yeah.
that EFAs are a good program.
Right, and I think.
Wait,
I
say
think
that
we
again?
Be in favor of EFAs and be in favor of protecting rights.
Like, I don't understand why agreeing to this report that focuses on potential problems with the conflation, or like, the only reason I described this bill as overreaching was because the bill wasn't written to differentiate between the two pathways. But then,
So
He
what
said
would
his
that, let me
intention was-
pause just for a second, because that's what I'm talking about. So you
Right.
take that, right? So now what's the advising to the commissioner?
to keep educating people between these two pathways.
Yes, and to be clear, right, do you see what I'm saying is you take that's an example of something then the recommending or the versus taking a position. See, I don't know that we've taken a position in the past. We've advised that parents have reported that the wallet thing has been a challenge. That's an unintended consequence. When legislatures are making new laws, here's an example, instead of having an opinion about, and again, that's the difference between you and me, is you have a really strong opinion about it. You are a independent home educating person who does not want to be attached to any kind of government money or oversight of what you're doing.
That
That's for
understates
their
my
families.
position. I don't want the government to give any money to any person who educates their child at home. Because it undermines the right to home education everywhere, for everyone.
Okay, so that's your position.
That's my position
Right.
first.
But
Right,
that's
right,
not
right,
what the
right.
letter says,
Right.
and it's very even.
That's
Before
not
that,
what I
it's
read
not
in
what it
here. I
said,
don't
and
say
it's not what
the
Becky's
board
edit
has adopted this position. That's my position.
Right, and I even put that HEAC chair holds the opinion that,
Yes.
so that other people would check off on every other part of this. Saying, yes, this is what HEAC does, and these are the problems that it faced, and these are the problems that we need to be, like, dealing with. But. Like, the people who are not here today can agree with all of this, but maybe would come in, I wish they were here, line by line, and say, I don't think it's impossible to advocate impartially, so that's the PF chair's position. I really thought that this was gonna go through, I didn't know they weren't gonna, it really stinks that they did this to us.
Mhm.
Well, look, if we were to vote to adopt this today, it would be illegitimate. I think if we vote at the next meeting with a different membership
It's not-
after using this, that will be illegitimate as well. And what public platform I have here, the more we argue about it, the longer this drags on, the more the content of this report that certain people don't want to come to light will come to light. And that's the best I can hope for. Because this is a problem and there is political pressure to suppress the awareness that this is a problem. And the only thing we could accomplish by adopting this report today is to just move on to next year's business.
Yeah.
So some people have chosen to continue having this argument into the next year, and I can't help that.
The rest of us sit at this table.
Is there any way to adopt an annual report with some people being remote, or?
No, we can't adopt anything
Mm-mm.
based on this rule about the vacant commissioner appointments.
So the commissioners' appointments are voting.
Well, their voting member was, the appointments are voting members and the commissioners, what was the term you used? Not-
They are referred to as commissioner appointment.
Okay,
There's
so the
two of
commissioners
them, and they
appointment and the
vote.
general appointments are all voting members. But for some reason, even when they're vacant, the commissioners' appointments still count towards a quorum.
That's,
Right, and I
I
think
don't
I
think that
mentioned,
that follows any normal
I get,
It
that's
doesn't.
the attorneys.
conformity. I
That's the
can't see how
attorneys.
that is possible. If you have a vacant board and only 2 members are present, there is a majority existing amongst the 2 that are present, even if it's a 12-member board and the other seats are empty. Otherwise, it's to the commissioner's advantage to continue to leave us with vacant seats, which has happened over the last school year. We
Well,
have
I think
members.
what they're saying is that that is actually the commissioner's prerogative to just not have it yet.
Yeah, and again, I think it's, and again, I'm not an attorney, our Chris Bond, our former attorney, and Liz Brown this morning confirmed that for me, that is in fact how it's been interpreted by our attorneys. So-
But even when they're not present, that's the question that doesn't make any sense. That their
Right.
seat counts as a required seat for a
Right.
quorum,
Mhm.
even when they're not present.
Not
Even when they're
present,
not
when they don't
filled,
exist.
yeah, even when the seat doesn't exist. That's the question. It's not that they didn't show up, it's that they
Correct. Yeah,
resigned
it's
and they're no
unfilled.
longer part of the
Right,
council.
yes,
So potentially there could be a board that existed where there were several unfilled seats and the quorum would be more than the people who are actually in the board.
Physically
Yes,
present in the.
actually,
Yes, they're saying if the commissioner wants to just defunct the
Yeah,
HEAC, he
but-
could not simply stop appointing people until the number of appointees falls below the quorum.
So if there were 8 seats and 4 were unfilled, then you would need an imaginary 5th person to do.
Yeah, it would,
everything. Oh, wow.
end of the
That's
day,
not-
Well,
it is the.
That would be the
commissioner's
point when you would
prerogative
talk
defunct
to the
board by not
legislative
assigning.
representative
Yeah.
and the senator to
They're
say,
right
fill
here,
the
that's why
seats.
they're on it.
Yeah,
Yeah. and,
But I
they
thought
call
only
it
the
out,
commissioner
Rachel
could
does.
fill those seats.
No, but that's where you then go
Yeah,
say
say,
that this rule, this
statute,
is
you have to
there's
do
a
this.
statute.
Well, it
that
has been a
requires
statutory
us.
requirement to fill the seats. Do we have a new commissioner appointed yet?
No, the
Close.
So-
nominated is on June
This week,
30th.
yeah.
Wait,
July.
Edelblut is in holdover, so he's still the current commissioner.
Yeah.
But there is a transition occurring. right?
And that's where that plays out. That it then goes back to them because that's a rule that this has to exist. Mhm.
Well, I wish we could vote to ask for that rule change.
So, I don't know.
The
Well,
best we can do
what
is
we-
ask our friend Margaret if that's something that she might be willing to.
Which rule change?
What you just suggested, that the, that the unfilled seats not count towards a quorum, regardless of the character of those unfilled seats.
Okay, that's a good discussion. We can, yeah, look and see if we could straighten that out. First avenue is to just go talk to the commissioner and
Yeah.
say, try, do this.
Mhm.
And if there's a problem with it, then we can think about doing
Yeah,
something.
I mean, I think, I wanna give.
No, I mean, if
the
it's not
benefit of the doubt.
filled, then you do it.
I don't think there's anything malicious here happening on the part of the commissioner. He's preserving those appointments for his successor, which is really the right thing to do.
But even before he announced his resignation, we had someone that was nominated that has attended every meeting since and has been denied the seat.
You probably knew it was.
So
Gonna
can,
leave
so
before.
if we're gonna have this conversation, this is a really good conversation. So what I would say is something that really needs to go back to the legislature for a conversation. And I'm gonna be very enthused when the new commissioner gets appointed to have that conversation, invite her to this meeting perhaps to have the conversation about making sure that we have our seats filled. Number one. Number two, understanding how complex this has come. These folks have come every single month. There's people on the screen that come every single month. There's such a concern at this point within the independent homeschool community that it's getting overtaken by these public school pathways, and it's kind of getting pulled into stuff that it doesn't want to be in, that someone needs to hear this and sit down and work this out so that this doesn't happen again, right? So that people aren't sitting at this table either not coming or coming in. People are angry and upset that their voices aren't being heard and movement isn't happening. Because it's just very concerning that we've gotten to this place that there was actually a floor, at the legislature, an attempt to dissolve this. So, and that, no one wants that. And I know last month you guys were really passionate and upset in the moment. There needs to be a home education council, and that's the feedback I got over
Well,
the past
there
month,
needs
is
to be a
that
home
cannot
education
happen.
council, and the home education council needs to be able to discuss matters of policy and rulemaking and, comment on legislation, suggest legislation. The council has to be competent to discuss political issues. Obviously, we don't have any decision-making power. But one of the problems is that there's a bit of a culture or a practice of using this as primarily an information sharing platform. We come, we talk about our activities, we listen, we swap stories, maybe we answer some questions from the public. It's mostly about information sharing, and it's not about discussing policy, rulemaking, and legislation. And so that has to be the understanding. The reason we have public meeting, rules and everything else is because we're here representing a subset of the population with an intention of influencing public policy.
And that's why we have representatives and senators
Right.
on it, right?
Exactly.
And that's
Not just answering
yes.
people's like, how do I
Right, but it's their
register my
job to
kid?
do that.
Exactly.
Right, and it's our job to inform the commissioner or advise the commissioner, hey, this is happening, that's the
say the things he doesn't want us to say. And the people who spent the last meeting on, points of order and quibbly questions about procedure, to make sure we didn't adopt a report then, have also chosen to deny us a quorum this month because they are trying to run out the clock. They believe when they get to September, they'll get a bunch of friendly new members. They'll get maybe some change from the legislature that explicitly says that we can't comment on policy or something. Or maybe we get dissolved, but whatever, nothing will go to the Board of Education saying that there's any problem whatsoever with EFAs for homeschooling, and that's the political goal.
Is that your take on that?
I think you read a lot of motive there that I'm not sure that I agree with completely. I don't really know why these people are not there, and having had things imputed to me
Yeah.
that weren't correct, I'm kind of reticent to do
Yeah.
that there. I think we can have some really good discussions because regardless of what we do here, there's stuff going on out there that's going to attack home education. And we need to be on guard for that. And that's why I think HEAC is very important right now, because it's almost like we're going back to the beginning. And I don't know if you read Andrew Valinsky at all.
Yes.
But if you've seen the two most recent posts there, he has no idea that there's a difference between home education.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. That to me is the biggest thing to get out of our year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And that's very concerning to
And
me.
that's all that.
But I read that, the only thing is I read that as intentional, because I think that the movement for school choice uses the positive track record of homeschooling from the independent community, where our kids on average do better than any other form of education, private, public, charter,
Yep.
doesn't matter. Our kids outperform, but our kids outperform because it's a select group.
Mhm.
Because we're not, because it's not the low effort path for a parent, to homeschool their child. It's not, it's not because, the kitchen table is a magical place for learning. It just isn't, right? And you get a good education at home, but it's mostly a selection effect. And they want to use that track record that we have of very successful kids, do very well on tests, do very well in life, get in great schools. They want to use that and say, we can provide this to every child through the EFA program. So that equivocation,
Who's the they? You're
the
saying?
they being
National.
the national and local school choice movement. The national and local school choice movement want to say, look at the wonderful
Like the children's
outcomes.
scholarship fund.
Yeah, look at the wonderful outcomes you get from home education. Look at the wonderful outcomes you get from private education when it's not funded by the state, when it's only a select group of more affluent children. And somehow that all public school kids could have that, if we just took the money out of the public schools and put it into these things. I don't love the public school system personally, but that is unfair to the public school system. The public school system is the school of last resort, and they have to take everybody and they take the problems. And so all of the problems show up in their statistics. This is a major deception, equivocation, eliding on the part of school choice. That you could substantially change the outcomes by changing, where the education happens. And so this, even though we're just talking about actual problems that are arising for our constituency, it is not something that they want to hear as part of that larger school choice agenda. And that is why I think this has caused such controversy. Now, I think most of the members, I don't think the members here are motivated by that. I think they love this council. They know that good work is done here. And when they realize that there's political pushback because of this, they say, well, let's not do this. Let's do the other stuff. Keep the council going. This isn't so important. Fine. That's their opinion, but the opinion of, I think, the three of us at this end of the table is that this is important enough that it should be in the public record. We should discuss it. It should inform, what we say to the legislature, what we say to NHED should be informed by a knowledge that this particular aspect, and something for me, it's not the entire EFA program. It's just the EFAs as applied to home education are causing problems. They are causing problems. They will cause problems in the future. If you let them go and you let that equivocation happen where people don't make a distinction, in 20 years, homeschooling is going to probably be the worst pathway, honestly. Because what's going to happen is that, in every school, there's like 2% of kids who are the problems. And the administrators, the principals, they know if these 5 kids in my 300, child middle school just weren't here, I would have fewer fights, I would have fewer disrupted classes, I would have, so much less drama. And it's the easiest thing in the world for them to say, here's the paperwork, you can do a little, online high school at home or whatever for your kid who is causing me a problem. And so we instead of filtering for the most stable families with the most motivated kids and the most resources available, we will be filtering for the people who the public schools don't want. That's what's going to happen. And in 20 years, they're going to say, wow, garbage results from homeschooling. Look at it. Half these kids can't read when they're 18 years old or whatever. That's what's going to happen. So EFAs long-term are a disaster for homeschooling.
Amanda Whedon has some public comment when you're ready.
Well, okay, are we gonna move to public comments? Or do we have more?
I'm just letting you know.
Sure.
She's put it in a couple times.
She may not like what I'm saying. Might be.
No, I think she's in the same place.
Okay, again, we're going way down the road on that one because right now it's 7,000 kids that are not, out of 160,000 kids that are not in public school. So they're getting all kids, really, all right? So is it gonna go that far that way? I don't know,
But
but
I don't want to risk it.
yeah. But yeah, the problem that we have is that, people judge public schools by their intent and they judge us by the worst case scenario. And
That's true.
and we have to figure out, and this is what Andrew Valinsky is doing right now. And we need to, we have an immediate threat because he has a large voice in the state. And we don't want to be his examples of things on his,
Mhm.
fair funding tour. But, and that's exactly why our mission here to differentiate this. in
That I think
conflict.
to me was the most important thing we did this year,
Yeah.
was discuss that. And it has to be addressed by both the Department of Education and the legislature, that they are not the same.
And that is the main.
That to me is, yeah.
I mean, as a reach goal, I think we as independent home educators should say we would very much like the EFA statute to be amended to not apply to home education. As you say, it's only 7,000 kids. It's a minority of EFA grants that go to home education. It's a minority of home educators that take EFA grants. It's a very slim number of people. It's the biggest problem is the conflation. And the conflation simply wouldn't happen if you had to go to a private school with your EFA. If you had to go to a private school with your EFA and there was no home education happening using EFA grants, this would all go away. And the rights of the majority of homeschoolers who don't take EFAs would be protected. The rights of the majority of EFA recipients who don't homeschool would be protected. And there's just a natural affinity here, because when the government pays for something reasonably, they want to inspect it, they want to monitor it. And the soul of home education is, this is not government inspected and monitored education. That sovereignty of the family in terms of education is our pole star. And so this just, it goes to the heart of what the home, a home education movement is. It's not necessarily, I may seem to be paranoid talking about what might happen in 20 years, how people might respond to this, but it is a confusion of the issue in the first place, just allowing these grants to go to home education. So that, as a reach goal, I think, at least I personally would continue to advocate for just eliminating that from the EFA statute. If you have a private school, you have a building with people whose job it is to be there, and if the government has paperwork, if the government wants to come in and inspect, that's, not really an imposition on anybody. Every business might be subject to inspection or subject to a certain amount of bureaucracy. When it's a parent that has to subject themselves to background checks or fill out reports or allow government officials to inspect their home or any of these things, that's a very different thing. And let's just not do it. I mean, I know,
It's an
I'm
interesting
in a
idea.
minority here,
It's an
but-
interesting idea,
but
I
that
think
should
in reality,
be,
it
that
would
should be our
just
reach goal.
change homeschooling again by making homeschoolers create private schools, because that's
Well, but then they
so
wouldn't,
that they could use the money,
but then,
like in California, you can
that's
like
fine.
make your own private.
I would
school.
love there to be, I would love there to be a blossoming of 1 million public-private schools that are, incorporated and have officers and staff and buildings and,
But you would probably get frustrated when all of your homeschooling opportunities suddenly rebranded themselves as private schools and went through those hoops.
what homeschooling opportunities? Do you think,
know,
like, I can't buy a textbook anymore?
No, I mean, like, anything with other kids that's sort of a structured, established, like that.
I don't believe that, because
They're already reliant on the funds. and
Well,
It's going to get a lot.
I don't
it's
see-
going to get a
I
lot
don't
worse
see that
than
as a
the
problem.
funds Next year.
I guess I don't see that as a problem, and that may have to do with the way we homeschool, which is, most of our group activities are informal and not particularly research. I don't know that anybody in our circle is taking public funds currently. And fine, like, honestly, I don't care if it's, a tiny percentage of the population that homeschools. What I want to do is preserve in practice, the right of a family that cares enough to truly be independent from the state and educating their children.
That's why I think that the focus of HEAC needs to be, like, I think that's a good opinion and a good long-term, like, vision. But the purpose of HEAC just needs to be keeping them separate, protecting the rights
Yeah.
of RSA 193. That's it.
Our job here is to hold the line of 193A.
Right.
And that is very inconvenient to many individuals right now, and it shouldn't be.
But it shouldn't be inconvenient to the people on this board who decided not to show up there because that.
Exactly.
No, they are, from what I've heard from them, though, they don't even want to have an opinion about the EFA stuff. They just say, well, look, the legislature doesn't want to hear this, or, the commissioner doesn't want to hear this. Let's do the stuff that they do want us to do.
But
They
this
take an approach like we're, employees of these people or something.
representative who's been here every meeting, who reiterates every meeting that legislators do need to hear about the difference. And
They do.
right now.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
So even the people who have both kinds.
Should
their
know,
own
most people who
statement.
should know, don't know, but yeah.
So that to me is the huge piece. So this is a mix to me of reporting the experience. Like in the past, we actually had a list of recommendations. So those aren't here. And then there's where it just changing some language would still keep the intention, but the issue is this, because they've somehow gotten, people think they're the same thing. And actually, the general public, most school educators, most people have no idea of the 4 pathways. They don't.
No.
So what has happened is somehow the class wallet thing, we've heard about that. So when I hear this line here, the market distortion is an unfortunate effect of government subsidies. I don't think that needs to be there. However, the 193A home educators not will need, but reported they have had to seek out alternative pricing structures or alternative services. And I wouldn't have said in the wake of artificial demand caused by EFA expansion. I might have said something like in the wake of EFA's home educating families applying for or using those funds too. That's what we heard. I can get behind that. We heard that. People said that. So there's so many things in here, like, I understand you want to give that example. I don't know how we do that, but the conflation of unfunded with government funded, as well as the public invites pressure and scrutiny, increased scrutiny and compliance burdens on all families colloquially described as homeschoolers. So I thought we're gonna roll up our sleeves as a group and kind of go through this and do this. So I still think they're, if people,
Well, at the
I
next
don't want to do
meeting,
it now, but
you
no.
know, Inshallah, we have a quorum. At the next
Yeah.
meeting, we will do exactly that.
Because honestly, we're really close. But I do think that saying, I think the frame has to be that what we've recognized through public comment, through people writing in, through people reaching out to all of the members on HEAC, is there is incredible confusion, misinformation, and all of the misses around independent home education and EFAs that are families who are accessing they're calling it home education. And then we talked about this year, identifying the different pathways, identifying and distinguishing between them. I think Althea, one of them, offered a visual framing, here's what they look like, the different pathways. And then we communicate that. And then, so to me, that's on the to-do list to the commissioner, as we're advising that there needs to be information about this. We used to do that when Tim was on. Hey, Tim, this needs to be on the website. People need to understand this. I mean, that's advising. Here's the list of our recommendation based on our experience this year.
I don't, I doubt that anything that the NHED does as far as messaging is
Yeah.
going to change the fact that psychologically, people have a map. And
Yeah.
there's kids who are at their houses during the day
Yeah.
on weekdays, and there's kids who are out of school. And that, like, EFAs will always to the public, EFA for home education will always to the public, just let's say it's homeschooling. And I don't think that could be changed, because I think, from a logistical standpoint, from a social expectation standpoint, they look very similar. And, whether somebody.
So maybe that's the conversation to the legislature to sort of differentiate that out.
I know, you can't tell by going in
Right.
the grocery store which family takes an EFA.
Right.
But the kids are still both there during the day, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we really want them right now to succeed, and as they're doing it, there's gonna be a big sea change now, because there were a lot of applications that went in before the July 15th deadline. And what we really need to see is how that sorts out. I
Mhm.
mean, were there a lot of former independent home educators who are now taking EFA money? I don't know, but it'd be a great number to have.
Will you be able to get that?
I'm gonna try my darndest, yeah.
Can you also get a pulse on, I know that they're not limiting based on income, but they are still supposed to be asking the income question, because once the cap is hit, then the income question is
Correct,
supposed to
yeah.
come into play.
I think that'll answer that question about whether millionaires are gonna start taking EFAs. But yes, that information is still coming, yeah, so,
We hope.
yeah.
Well, I mean.
Well, it has to, because they have to have
then
that
how
hierarchy.
do you interpret it? I mean, if you have people who were previously in public school taking EFAs, leaving public school, then, well, with the school choice, purpose, you save some money, obviously, maybe in the school system. Long term you will have. But, if all you're doing is turning independent homeschool families into EFA home educators, what's the public benefit of that at all? You're just saying, hey, what you were doing previously for free, now we're gonna pay you $5,000 a year to do. What is?
No, it
what
actually
way-
is not saving money for the public school system.
Does
You
it-
understand that.
I understand.
As long as
You're-
there are 10 kids or 10 kids in grade level, you have to run that grade level in that
No, I
class.
understand.
Yeah,
I
so,
understand. I'm saying
so that's
it's
a
not-
false
I understand.
argument. You know that too.
I know that, but
Yeah, I
in
love
the
how
long run,
deeply you think about
In,
things.
in America of 20 years from now.
Yes.
Where 30% of kids are at home, there are fewer schools built. There are schools that previously were separate that are consolidated.
see what you're saying,
So in the
yes.
long run, there is some savings to be had. No,
Plus, if you
next
tuition your
year,
kids for high school or any grade, and they're not being tuitioned anymore, you are automatically saving right then. High school students in Cornish, high school students in, any school that sends them there, town of Springfield tuitions.
well,
every
for the
kid.
town, but then the other towns, since they're still gonna have to keep that building open
Yeah.
and those grades staffed.
Yeah,
is going
this
to
is
just-
not a savings. This is,
It's just moving on.
and I believe in school choice. Okay, my experience in Concord was being at the time, the homeschool coordinator for the district, and it was a great opportunity to meet with families in a really different way, because at that time, they would come in and do assessments, and it was just a wonderful way to connect with people in our community. And again, in the general population, I'm sure some people think home educated, oh, those kids are just hanging out at home, not doing school, when in fact, the statistics you shared are actually true.
Yeah.
So again, it's a really complex and challenging issue that we're facing, that it's gotten tangled up with the whole school choice.
Well, I think
movement,
it's all
'cause
gonna
it
come to light.
Predated, yeah.
You know, I think a
So-
lot of, people I know, like in the sort of, libertarian community, are under the impression, and it's very hard to argue them out of it, that you are somehow shrinking the public school system through the FA program. And, and I agree, like, if it was wildly successful, then over the course of decades, you would have a smaller, public education budget. But that's not anything that's going to happen in the near term. And that's deeply misunderstood. And I think that if the public that supports school choice understood that, then things like EFAs would be a lot less popular than they are. Yes?
Katie Petronell
Okay.
has her hand up.
Oh, okay.
Katie, are you unmuted?
Yes, thank you. I've been waiting a while. It's hard to get a word in edgewise when you can't unmute yourself. I just wanted to say that we are planning on defining in statute this year the difference between 193A and an EFA home educators. We've already begun working on that. So that is definitely a move in a positive direction. It is important, I agree with all of you, that we need to make sure that we continue to differentiate between 193A and 194 home educators, without a doubt. You are certainly free, if you wish, to contact any legislator. Sorry, I have my 2-year-old granddaughter in the background if you hear her. Any legislator to see if somebody would submit legislation to remove home education from 194. That's certainly your prerogative. Whether or not that passes is a completely different issue. So no one is saying that none of these things can't happen. They don't necessarily have to happen through HEAC though. So I think that's pretty much covers what I was wanting to say today.
I mean, nothing happens through HEAC except we have a conversation across a cross section of independent homeschoolers or organizations of independent homeschoolers, and come to, if not a consensus, we at least explore the problem space collectively, and sometimes come to a majority opinion.
Yeah, and sometimes it's challenging because we have certain filing dates. So the filing date for the upcoming session is September 15th. So we have a short window here right now where we could be approaching legislators, myself included, or having these discussions, not necessarily at a HEAC meeting. It's certainly permissible, not necessarily subject even to 91A, to have discussions outside of HEAC about how we want to move this legislation forward. And it's until it's signed by until it passes the bodies of the House and the Senate, it's always open to change. So we do have to start having some more productive conversations rather than circular conversations about the issues, because we haven't really solved anything and we haven't really moved forward. So we need to be more proactive in defining home education in statute.
Yeah, and I think, Katie, that's exactly what this report, I would like it to recommend. Clear distinction between them. Maybe, I don't know, I hadn't thought about it, but perhaps changing the term homeschool, whatever, I don't know, in that other statute, because it has created, because I mean, you did a great job with the introduction of the second category paragraph, because that actually, we heard that all year, right? Because you guys have worked really hard as independent home education families through this council and legislation to have access to public school. And I mean, we had tons of kids coming in Concord, accessing band, chorus, orchestra, world languages, math classes, participating in sports and all those wonderful things. And if you're an EFA family, and many of them don't know this, they can't access those things because they're receiving money to get their own they're completely different pathways. So I think that the unintended consequence of the second, it's not, that's where I feel, I want to be EFA neutral in the sense that I don't want to take a stand or an opinion on whether or not I support that or not. What I want to say as a person on HEAC is by introducing that pathway through the EFA program with the, I guess now I'm going to use it as an unfortunate term, homeschoolers, which has now gotten tangled with our home education stuff, it's created a whole bunch of problems. And that, I feel like that's the crux of our report this year. And ultimately, the recommendation would be, does the legislature need to look at either removing it or changing it? It sounds like you guys are planning on addressing it, but really distinguishing those pieces and untangling them, because it's created quite a web, and no one, the other unfortunate one for me is, it's in that paragraph, which I would love to see it reworded somewhat, is the one we heard a lot about, the tax credit scholarship program in the class wallet and how hard it has become for one.
Like, I didn't see the need to, articulate what the pathways are, or to,
Right.
enumerate every, complaint, but say there's been a number of complaints.
Yeah.
There are a number of conflicts, conflicts of interest, not people fighting. The board has concluded that conflation is a problem, and we will, in our policy discussion and advocacy going forward, keep an eye on conflation, or I forget exactly
That
what I
was the
said.
report I said.
So that was my
original, yeah, I like that one.
and it was, and then I was told, well, we need to say what the problems are, okay, we need to, we end up with something longer, but ultimately, that's it. It's, we as a board, the
Yeah.
thing we learned from this year
Yeah.
is that we have to keep an eye out for conflation. And it's not just, suggesting a particular bill, it's also reviewing other bills,
Yeah.
like
The
happened.
one you
with
said,
background
right,
checks,
making sure they don't get linked up.
Look, they're conflating, look, or, they're not drawing that distinction, we need to jump on that, so. That, I think, in both versions, and maybe it's a little less clear here just because there's so much more, content. In both versions, those are the words I was putting in the mouth of the board. They don't reflect the entirety of my personal opinion, but that's what I was saying we should perhaps adopt. Some state going forward, it will come up in many different forms in many different ways, and we are of the opinion that these things need to not be conflated.
Okay.
I think we've talked for about an hour. I'd like to move on to public comments unless there's more that people want to say. I don't want to cut anybody off who's a member. Yeah, let's move on to public comments.
Do you want to take the people in the room or serve the people online?
Yeah, people in the room, I would say. I said a limit of 3 minutes, 3 minutes and 30 minutes total. We have a bit more time than that because we didn't actually do any work today.
My name is Kate Abbott. I'm from Portsmouth. I'm a 193A family. Just wanted to bring attention to the council of the recent state legislation trying to be pushed through in other states like Tennessee and New Jersey, especially with the welfare checks. I'm very concerned about coming down the pike. And I'd also like to know if there is a network or a way to work with legislators who'd be willing to further bolster the current protections for home ed, that we can
Mhm.
solidify those further in statute, hopefully soon, so we can.
Get it on for next year.
Is there
Yes,
something specific that you, some additional specific provision you're looking for?
yes, I believe it's in section 6 under the evaluations and assessments. Changing a couple words in there, but there has been discussion of what that might look like. So I'm hoping to work on that. I'm a little concerned about the neutering of the HEAC committee just by the rules that have been in place, as this was an extra meeting. I thought we'd be able to have something further, but thank you.
Could you keep the legislators informed of what you're looking for in the,
Like an LFI, so they can
Yes,
propose
I would
one.
love to. I would love to be able to.
the
pursue
dates
that.
to do that, the 15th, the 19th of September? So we need, but all you have to have is like a title. I'm doing something on home education, but then flesh it out between then and November.
But a legislator has to. do
Legislator
that.
has to put that.
Yeah.
in.
Yes.
So I think, were you asking for like, how would we get in tune with what reps are like, open to being asked to do something related to that? Like,
Is
do
there
you
an
have like a?
independent
secret list?
homeschooling caucus that's been identified?
Or even just informal with.
Just a mailing list.
I love you, Mark. Oh my God, that's so good. What about you guys? I mean, I remember Rep. Cordelli, and he's very strong for home education too. Yes, he's also very pro-school
I guess
choice.
that's a different, it is a different way
Yeah,
of defining.
yeah, but I don't know, is there someone who'd be willing to work with the group to
Well,
talk about
You
that?
know, I am on the education policy
Yeah.
committee, so getting it to me at least gets that to the people who.
Who might
see that.
Step in and
stuff.
take it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Thank you.
that's great, thank you.
Who's that?
All right, so, my name is Deb Sullivan, I live in Goffstown, I'm a 193A home educator. I have a couple of points. First of all, as someone who has attended HEAC meetings and seen the discussions firsthand, I want to see the problems discussed in those meetings presented, that were presented to the 193A community by EFA money comes homeschoolers, to make it into the public record via this report. And I applaud the members who came today, and I'm extremely disappointed in the members who deliberately denied a quorum by their absence. The second point I have is a little different subject. I submitted a right to know document seeking the most up-to-date HEAC best practices document. And what I received was the minutes of the May 2023 meeting, and the response said that these were the best practices that were adopted and approved by the DOE. And I was kind of confused because it wasn't just a actual like document listing just best practices. It was the
I know
meeting
what you-
minutes.
Yeah,
And I had asked for the most up to date. They sent me May, and I've heard that there were changes made or voted on maybe at the September meeting. So first of all, when I asked for the most up to date, I would have thought that I could
Yeah.
get something from September. So I'm gonna submit another request, but my question would be, was there, when these changes were made, was there an actual, after, people.
you mean
hashed
like
out
a
what they
document
were,
made?
Was there a document that was voted on at this meeting, and then, is it somewhere that I can request it and get it?
Right.
So I can respond to that if that's okay with the chair.
Please.
And so, yeah, so the prior chair, that's how those were done. I don't know if you recall, Heather, April had it as part of the agenda,
Yeah,
and those were voted on a rolling basis and discussed, and there's some that were drafts, because I responded to the 91A with that document you referenced, because that was the one that said approved on that meeting date. And so, when April left, I think when Marcus first started, there were a few that might have been voted on, but there was never a separate document.
Yeah, there were some,
As
we
best
voted
practice.
on changes as they were
Yeah.
suggested.
Yeah.
So if somebody says, they want to change the way.
Yeah.
I think in the initial sort of template, agenda that you gave me, there was this, up near the front, this vote on the best practices or vote on the, and this just seemed like
Right.
to do this every month was repetitive and, you know, unless there was cause for a change that we
Right.
would just
Yeah.
go for it. I didn't realize that there wasn't, you know, a separate document somewhere that memorialized what the best practices are as at the moment, so.
Right.
we
So
should
maybe
perhaps
that's
in
something we
September
create, that
consider
could be on
taking
our
that.
to-do list, yeah, like the LSR home education EFA could be something that the group considers. It has to be done by September 15th to 19th. The best practice document, because I don't think there is an actual document.
So most of those changes would have occurred before I was a member.
Right.
Can
Yeah.
you or someone from
Yeah.
NHED go through and extract those and give us something to start with?
Yeah,
For
we can
next
probably do
next
that, yeah.
meeting?
Mhm. That's really helpful.
Public comments from the,
It's online public comments.
Online, let's get Amanda Whedon. Been waiting patiently and then.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi guys. So, well, first of all, thank you. I'm so sorry that this is not a business getting done meeting. So, I was not available at the last meeting to discuss, and my intention is not to rehash things, but I just wanted to point out, and again, because you're sitting there without a quorum, that I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised at a pattern of behavior on behalf of some of the members. So I just wanted to, and I wrote a letter up that I'm going to send you guys so you can read it in full. But I just wanted to clarify a few things because at the last meeting, my viewpoints, my work was misrepresented, and I believe that was done purposefully. And so I just needed to clear the air here. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew, and it's on the record, that I signed in opposed to the dissolution of HEAC. I went in person to testify, and my testimony confronted the substance of the matter. In person that day, I collaborated with Diane, Jen, and George from Catholics United for Home Education in an attempt to get on the same page regarding HEAC, the year-end report, and moving forward. I did the same with legislators and my co-leader of Christian Home Educators of New Hampshire and Southern Maine, Michelle Rohrabacher. So our Granite State Home Educators Director, Michelle Lavelle, was unable to attend in person, so she sent her husband, who also was opposed. I was there literally all day attempting to understand the goals and remedies in order to protect home education. And then afterwards, I spoke with Marcus, and he agreed with me reaching out to Diane directly in order to facilitate her changes for the year-end report. He had received no edits, despite Diane's strong viewpoints, which she expressed to me in person multiple times, that she wanted a large percentage of the report removed. So I have that email exchange that I will attach to this letter, and it's my understanding that the protocol was discussed and agreed upon at a HEAC meeting, but no edits were sent to him. And so here we are again, with no quorum, and in my viewpoint, holding the meeting hostage. And again, this is a pattern because what's not fine with me is after all the work and collaboration that I did with Diane specifically in person, imagine my surprise, her attempting to throw me and Michelle and Granite State Home Educators under the bus by cherry picking my testimony, which was obviously in opposition. So she also demanded an opinion from Marcus, who is not me, obviously, and casted shade on our motives in our placement on HEAC. We are the largest home education group in New Hampshire, and so casting shade on us in that way, I believe, was inappropriate. And it was actually shocking to me because I had worked all day with Diane. I reached out to her a number of times, and I received no substantive return willing to work together. So this is all taking precious time away, and I think we can all agree that HEAC is important in many ways, but it's not serving its role well when these sort of backhanded, purposefully disruptive things are going on. And again, unfortunately, this is a pattern to undermine and misrepresent. And HEAC has been held hostage in the past by members, and that's what's happening today, right now. So y'all drove out there to sit there for 2 hours and hash all this out and do good work, and people purposefully are not showing up to throw a wrench in this. And I'm sorry, but this is avoidant and petty behavior. And not once has anyone reached out to me that has an issue like this. Diane does not call me, message me during any of this. And I thought we worked powerfully together to defeat that non-germane amendment. So it was very surprising to me. What kind of message are we sending with this behavior? And it's unfortunate Diane's not here because I don't believe in throwing people under the bus this way. I'm not asking to kick Diane out or to throw QE out or anything like this. Every one of you is valuable, and I like you all, and I respect your input, but you can't move forward when people are purposefully holding hostage the important work you do. So I just, I know Jen is on here from QE. Diane doesn't seem to be on, but I don't understand why this pattern of behavior is continuing even to this day, because you need to get work done. The report needs to happen. And so I want to encourage you that you are doing good work. We shouldn't cower to any political party. We don't do that for Democrats, and we shouldn't do it for Republicans. HEAC should be nonpartisan, and that shouldn't be a controversial position. So I just want you to know that I appreciate you so much. Assume the best in my intentions. I try to do that for you guys as well. But we need to be able to work together, and awkward conversations is part of that. But this backhanded, shenanigans, I'll call it, being purposefully holding hostage is just not appropriate. And, I need, if you need me, I'm available, but I really wish that Diane and Althea would be part of the conversation, really do the work, do the adulting, and if you don't like someone's tone or what they say, or someone's interrupting, then tell that person, then, we need to adult here. So, I appreciate you guys, and I hope I'm not coming across as scolding you at all, because, I know how important this is and you're there doing the work. But I'm just really disappointed. And I just wanted to say that I'm sorry that, you drove all the way out there and this happened. And I want to say on record that Granite State Home Educators Director, me personally, representing both organizations that I help lead, we signed and opposed to the dissolution of HEAC, and to misrepresent that was really inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Michelle Lavelle, do you have comments?
No, I did make a few comments in the chat that I would like to have read, if that can be put into the record, but other than that, no, thank you.
Yeah, they're in the chat.
Yeah.
I can't read.
Yeah, it's impossible to read it this time because it's
Yeah.
a tiny screen.
Can you have it on your laptop there? Can you read it to us?
Yeah, so Michelle's comments?
Yeah.
Tim, just as a suggestion, when we had comments in the chat last time, we just had Ally read the whole straight chat, because sometimes it's interactive between the
Right.
members.
And we had a discussion, is that appropriate for DOE staff to do that? 'Cause
Yeah.
That particular meeting, there was some, what might be construed as inappropriate comments about one of the representatives, for example. So we would
yeah.
suggest that a council member read the chat
Okay.
into the record, because the council does the minutes as well.
All right, of us
I-
with Dick.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, so.
Yeah.
Can't see the screen.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah.
We don't have a problem with it.
Sure, I can read them.
Okay.
No, no, I'm happy to read them here.
And so again, it's,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
apologies for the room.
There's no
as
other
well.
live comments, no other people.
Well,
who
there's
wanna-
live-
I know, Michelle's
I
live.
mean, people who wanna
Oh, like speak.
voice speak,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you could read those.
Michelle, I've worked with you before. You could say this stuff too. Okay, ready? Michelle, at 10:32, the DOE's voice is muted. Sorry, lost him for a bit. Please unmute the DOE. The DOE is muted. That was Michelle, then Amanda followed with DOE is muted. Thanks. This must have been about the, unmute. Oh, they're mute. I get it now.
We
All right,
unmuted.
Amanda, I have public comment. Yes, Amanda, I will get you in. He knows and doesn't care. Belinsky doesn't care about the difference. That's Amanda. Then Michelle says this was a reference to Belinsky. And then Amanda says Belinsky doesn't care about the difference. Michelle said Belinsky is not ignorant. It's deliberate to conflate the EFA and independent home education. Which has been HEAC's concern all along. Amanda, I have public comment. Michelle, 10K more applications were received by July 15th. It's been all over the news. Amanda, legislators flat out denied the request to remove homeschoolers. It's not going to happen. Amanda then said, hold on. I'm not used to using this device. I just don't know the process because no quorum, so just looking for acknowledgement of my desire for public comment whenever it's appropriate. Michelle said, in my view, the purpose of HEAC. Is to be a communication bridge between 193A communities and those who represent other pathways as defined in the statute. Over the years, HEAC's been able to resolve many issues before they rise to the level of legislation to provide wisdom and suggestions when our members face problems and bring issues to the awareness of other organizations in the Department of Education. There's value with this. However, that sometimes means there are problems that need to be discussed if we're to represent our communities. EFA has a parent-provider council already provided in 194F if they want to utilize it. Hang on, sorry, you guys. I went too quick.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. People and organizations that do know the difference between 193A and 194F, factual distinctions, deliberately conflate them. That is very problematic and contributes to the public perception and legislation the independent home ed community has faced. This is the fundamental issue many at HEAC have tried to address, in my opinion, and that was from Michelle. Michelle also said GASHE has a couple visuals to help families and others distinguish between independent home education and EFA options. Then Megan Schmidt said, we already have home school choice. We have public schools, co-ops, charter schools, private schools, homeschooling, etc. But this movement for vouchers and EFAs has shown in other countries and states that it ends up costing more and harming independent homeschoolers. We have seen in 2025 that the legislators are either ignorant to the historical information, or they simply don't care. Losing HEAC or banning them from specifically watching out for 193A families would be an intentional silencing. I'd appreciate if those who don't have a main goal of advocating for non-funded homeschoolers would resign or decline their appointment and allow someone with those goals to step in. Michelle Lavin, why is defining or defending the separation of independent and of independent home education treated as oppositional to the EFA? Megan Schmidt, you don't save money when the majority of kids are non-switchers. Amanda, what's the agenda now? Michelle Lavin, that was at 10:54, 10:55. Will the draft legislation that more clearly separates 193A and 194F be run by any of the home ed organizations? So far, nothing has been shared. Amanda then said, is there a timeline for public comment? At 11:05, Representative Patternell said, send any suggestions for legislation to me. Amanda then asked at 11:18, what's the next steps for the year-end report? And I believe that is the end of public comment. So that's helpful.
Was that last
Somebody asked that
what about the
question.
year-end report? Was that a question?
That's a question. But right before we get to that, we were at someone here at our own table asked, who do we go to? And actually you asked about that, so Representative Pritnell saying send it to her.
If legislature to her, yes.
Yes, and any suggestions for legislation to me, that was at 11:05. And then Amanda asked the $1 million question, what's the next step for the year-end report?
So the next step, we have a regularly scheduled meeting in September. This will be continuing business at that meeting. It'll be a more normal a more normal agenda, and then we'll have to spend time reviewing the minutes and, you know, taking new business. We'll also hopefully have, yeah, I suppose the 15th is when they close no legislative proposals, right?
Mhm.
So we probably won't have all of our legislation to monitor for 2025 won't necessarily be in by the September meeting. Is that correct?
It closes on the 19th and the meeting would be at the 4th,
It's
We made the second.
the 2nd.
And
So it'd be
then-
beforehand,
Well, the second Friday.
second Friday,
What is the
okay,
second Friday?
which would be the 12th.
So there'll still be a week. There'll still be a week for legislative proposals after that meeting. So
Yeah,
I
but
don't-
you'd be hitting a sweet spot right there.
So can I ask a question? Because I'm actually, since this is an informal meeting, I'm not really sure about this. I mean, so like I, for example, could, but we can't send it to each other then, is that right? So for example, if we were, Rebecca offered an option here, if we wanted to take another swing at it, but we can't get together and work on it because we have to
Well,
do it as a group, correct?
You
Actually,
can't vote.
Tim has just confirmed that the four of us don't constitute a quorum,
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
So
and
you're-
that's
so
now
you're
on
not-
record.
So you're not a meeting.
So we're not a meeting, and the four of us can work together to find a report
Right.
that the four of us can agree to and be a majority report.
Oh, okay, great. So if somebody wants to meet in August, who's
I'd love to
interested,
meet
that
in August,
doesn't meet a
Heather.
quorum, we could offer
Well,
that.
since it's not going to be an official meeting,
Right.
then let's just do it on Zoom.
Yeah, that's perfect. That would be great.
In fact,
That works better, because I want everybody to know that I'm not on my phone doing anything bad, but I was trying to stay here as long as I could.
Sure.
And so I'm trying to do a little work and get answers to people while I'm here. So it's worked. So, all right, since we're not, we could just informally meet, and we could also informally look at some ideas to offer potentially, and maybe there's more than one different points of view that people might want to offer to discuss at the September meeting, which is a sweet spot to get something to you and Representative Patnell to take to,
Okay, so we'll have totally not a HEAC meeting.
right. And I'd be glad
Could I
to do
suggest that the second Friday at 2:30 is a time that tends to be convenient for members of this totally not a HEAC meeting?
Oh, sorry.
Just as a caution, and I don't know if this, just make sure you review 91A
Yeah,
to make sure you're not running afoul of anything
Okay,
within the
sure.
91A statute, that's all.
I mean, I'm honestly
you're
happy.
talking like.
Well,
August
91A is
No, that you're
applies
talking
to
8.
quorum
I
only.
could do that.
It's impossible.
Again, I'm not an attorney, so the entirety of 91A was all sent to all the members at one point.
Yeah.
Just make
And
sure
I
you're
also,
running afoul of it.
you know,
I don't know if you
I'd be
want.
happy to just have a
Be
long
cautious.
email thread
Yeah.
on this subject, you know,
Yeah.
and do it that way.
Back and forth edits and see how far we
Exactly.
get, and then maybe one short meeting to.
I keep a separate email for this purpose, so like, I'm not actually concerned about
Yeah,
91A requests
yeah, and
for that reason.
Yeah, and I don't think we're trying to subvert or do anything
No.
bad, but I'd love to keep going on getting something together for both those things, which are the wishes of all of the people involved in this, whether you're on one side of it, another side of it, another side of it. It would be helpful if we could offer something for everyone.
Just a quick question. So if this is not an official meeting, and I know that you want it to be recorded, is the DOE actually gonna put up the recording since this isn't an official meeting?
That's a question, I guess.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, we
not an official
announced
meeting,
it,
so-
we scheduled it at the last meeting, we sent out the announcements. People are expecting, you know, members of the public joined, I think this should be posted.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I'll
we
just
don't have a
confirm.
quorum, so it's not a business meeting, but you know, it's still a matter of public interest.
So we'll reach out, whoever is interested here, will reach out and start a string.
Sure.
Because I can offer some thoughts to that, and then we could get something going, because I
Sure.
don't want to get to September and start all over again.
No,
Right, not enough time, because
No.
it's impossible to get a bunch of
Mm.
people to agree in person.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's really hard to do anything.
all
without
right.
being able
I
to,
feel
Okay.
good about that. All right,
if we try to get the approval or the, feedback from people who are not here today as well, who are also voting members,
I
is
think
there
we
an
have to,
issue?
yeah, I think we have to look at the rules, and then I can call you, Tim, or somebody can call and check in on
Send this
that.
around then too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
don't know that we would need to seek out their opinions, because if we can come to a majority opinion
They could just.
on a draft, they can either vote to accept it or not.
Just continue to not come.
But I think by offering it, it's a good idea, just here's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Right.
I
'cause
totally
maybe
think
there's
that's fine.
just a
Yeah,
little bit that they want changed,
exactly,
and
yeah.
we can all make it work.
yeah,
I just want.
yeah, I like that thinking.
So
Yeah.
should, since the draft we're discussing is Becky's draft, then should we have, if, when you send that up to the other members, that they would
I can email it to everyone.
send
but
back to
just
you?
be one
Yeah, I
thing.
would do a flattened
Yeah.
version of
Yes.
Becky's
Yeah, yeah,
draft,
yes.
you know, like,
Yeah,
Not a non-edible.
yeah.
no, what I would, here's what I would do. I would take this, I would flatten it, so the strike through just gets deleted.
Make it.
Make it like this is the adopted version, put it in like a Google Doc, some
Yeah.
multi-user editable document. And we can have emails about what to do with it, and then people can also just make changes to that document as that progresses. And, you know, if there's some huge difference of opinion and we find ourselves fighting over the Google Doc, then maybe we stop doing that, but, you know, as long as
Well,
there's
have a
some
history too,
consensus
so you
around
can
it.
see
it's-
who did what when.
Right.
Right.
And
then-
I would just, what we were not able to do last meeting. And what, you know, and what I was hoping it would happen between the last meeting and the prior one. Is that people would be sending these things to me
Yeah.
and I'd be basically doing the equivalent. That hasn't happened. One member has actually sent edits to me, you know, in email, in the entire 2-3 meeting saga now, so.
Is it true that I have to email everybody one by one for
I don't,
rules
it's
reasons?
like.
Yeah, that's the stuff I don't know.
Like,
Yeah, and I'd have to
Yeah.
ask our attorney.
okay. I
Yeah,
guess
so
I'll-
maybe you could just get back to us about that.
Well, so the threat
Yeah.
is 91A, so if.
Right.
If, you know, I'm not concerned, like I said, I have a separate email, so if somebody 91As me, they can just get, you know, basically the contents of that.
Yeah.
If other members feel the same way, then I'm not worried about it. I'd
I'm
love
not
to have a
either.
conversation in public, it's just hard to schedule these things, so I'm not actually looking to like, avoid 91A.
So we're admitting that in doing so, we might be subject to 91A, and as individuals, we're just agreeing to,
We're fine.
we're fine with
I'm
that.
fine with
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
don't.
I
use
have
the
no
same
issue
email
with
that you
people
use
seeing the
for
history of what we did
banking
with the
and
document.
Private correspondence. and,
Same.
you
Yeah.
know.
Okay,
Yeah, so I'm very comfortable with that. Actually, that
So
makes
we-
me even more
We
willing to do it.
understand the
So
risk that we're running.
perhaps out of band, for people who aren't here to represent themselves, if before you would
Yeah.
put them on a CC giant email.
Yeah.
You know, ask them if they're comfortable with that.
Yeah. Because honestly, there's a history there that you could just click and show all the different things that happen with it, and
Right.
I have no problem with that being public.
But certainly not on the Google Doc.
No. No.
All right,
All right.
is there any?
Well, we made
other
some
business
progress.
or discussion? Or public
Are
comment?
there any other comments?
Oh, somebody
Oh,
just said,
wait, some couple.
I appreciate all of you, thank you.
I appreciate you.
What's the
Nice.
next step? Representative Petronell said, I would suggest sending legislators any suggestions well in advance. That's of the next meeting. That's why I'm saying we need to be
Right.
communicating with each other. Michelle Lavelle at 11:27 said it's a meeting that still needs minutes and 91A, but can't make votes or decisions. Amanda said, I appreciate all of you. Thank you at 11:31. So since it's not, I do really need.
Yeah, this meeting is subject to 91A.
Now
so it
that
doesn't
will
have to-
change about the quorum. Is that adequately communicated? Do you need me to send you that as a suggestion?
You know, it always helps to.
Yeah, right.
Multiple ways of getting.
Okay, because I don't know exactly as far as
Representative
legislative
Petronell-
suggestions, but I'm pretty solid on that.
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
got it on
put-
my list too.
Send it to both of
if
us.
this meeting needs minutes, what does, who's doing those minutes?
So,
Oh, right. Good. Enjoy it. That's good.
All right,
Well,
I have to
Diane
thank you all.
wanted
I appreciate you all.
Mark,
she
if
was
you
not,
okay with me
she was
stopping?
not
You can stop.
pleased with that situation last time, that she would prefer to pick somebody.
Thank you all
Well,
for coming again.
I didn't.
Welcome.